Good morning. My name is Diego. I've been asked many times for my biscotti recipe, and because it's all in my head, I decided I would actually make some movie clips of the different stages in preparing those biscotti. So this is it. We'll start now. So here we are again. First thing, we're talking about ingredients. A normal batch will produce about 8 to 9 biscotti. Size it's about 10 inches. I found that to be a little bit too big, so I'm actually using the ingredient for one batch to make 1.5. Now, I never do just one batch, of course. Normally, I prepare 4 batches of ingredients, which will give me 6 batches of biscotti. So, this one here is for the 4 batches, okay? Eggs, sugar, flour, almonds, oil, canola oil. So we'll start with the sugar. The sugar for batch, again, those are ingredients per batch. So if you make 4, of course you multiply by 4. Okay, sugar, it's 3/4 of a cup. So we are doing this one 4 times. I have a KitchenAid mixer. You could do it by hand, but when you start doing more than 3 batches, it becomes, you get tired. So, again, 1 3/4, 2, 3, and 4. That's for the sugar. Then it's the oil. The oil is 1/2 cup per batch. So basically, do this one 4 times again. 1. And we're back. So we did 2. Number 3 and number 4. Then we put the eggs. So 2 eggs per batch. So altogether, in this case, 8. By hand, mix the ingredient that they are in the mixer so that they don't just become a big lump. Break up the eggs. Just, give it a couple stir. Okay. As I was saying, to this mix here, I'll add my flavoring, which are 1 teaspoon per batch again of vanilla. I use pure vanilla from Mexico, of course. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, the original recipe, that's all it calls for. But what I found is that when you coat it with chocolate, adding a little bit of the orange flavor, it's very nice. So I used to actually zest oranges to put it in the mix. I found that one there tedious and just, not worthwhile. So I actually started using pure orange oil extract that you can get on Amazon probably, or many other grocery store. Again, it's pure orange oil, not flavored. Okay, again, 1 teaspoon per. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I'm doing the measuring basically for your benefit. I normally don't actually use teaspoon or that type of thing. I just go by feel. Okay, the other thing that I put in, and that one there, it's again never called for in the original recipe, crushed chili pepper. Now, that you can skip it if you don't like your biscotti to have a little bit of a bite, but so far all the people that have tasted my biscotti seem to like it. So again, for that one there, I normally use just a regular kitchen teaspoon. Okay, so we go with 1, 2, 3, and 4. That one there will give it a nice kick. Again, that one there, you can skip it, you can put more, you can put less, depend. I wouldn't put too much because then it would be overpowering. Okay, now we'll just have the mixer mix those ingredients for a little bit. Okay, and transfer that. The next ingredient, of course, is the flour, baking soda, baking powder, and the almonds. Now, for that, I start actually sifting the flour before putting it in the mixer. I don't know if it makes any difference or not. Anyway, I sifted and mixed at the same time 8 cups of flour and 4 teaspoons of baking powder. I actually use, again, kitchen teaspoon, so really it's probably 1.5 teaspoons per batch. Again, I normally don't measure accurately, but it will work. Okay, so here is the flour, which has been sifted and with the baking powder. Now I'm going to slowly add this one here in the egg and oil and sugar mix. At the same time, we will add the almonds. Now those one here, they are sliced almond, and you should only use sliced almond. Of course, you cannot use whole almonds. You can either use the natural one or the bleached, whatever you like and whatever you find on sale. So I found the bleached almond, sliced almond. The amount that you put per batch, when I do it, it's a handful. Now, what is a handful? I figure that perhaps it should be half a cup. Yeah, I'm about right. So basically, half a cup of sliced almond per batch. In this case here, so we're gonna do 2 cups. Okay, here we go. We're gonna start the mixer again and slowly add the flour. And at the same time, add the almonds. If you don't mind, I'm gonna stick to my handful. But again, remember, it's half a cup of almonds. 2, 3, and 4. So the almond is done, and we put it away. And we keep on adding the flour. Give a chance to the mix to absorb all the ingredients together. I like to gently scrape the side of the flour and it accumulated. Like I was saying, if you do it 1 or 2 batches, you can easily do this mixing by hand with a spatula. But once you start 3 to 4 or even more batches, a good mixer, it's really a good idea. And it has to be red, by the way. No, it doesn't. But it looks good. Okay. I'll put more flour. All the flour is in. Now the consistency, I basically check it by touch. You don't want the thing to be too sticky, but at the same time not overly dry. Again, the amount of ingredients that I gave you, they are the correct amount, but you may have to adjust the flour, perhaps put a little bit more or whatever. But again, that would be the only thing that goes over the called for ingredients. Okay, I'm gonna stop the mixer. It'll probably need a little bit more flour, but we want to separate from the bottom, and it actually looks quite good. Just I will add not even half a cup of flour, just to make it easier to handle it afterwards. It's done. Now, what we do, we just empty. Here is the finished product. Okay. Now, again, this one here is 4 batches, but it will make 6 batches of biscotti. I will show you what I did to ensure that the biscotti, they are more or less look alike, even. I actually fabricated some metal frame. Now, I have this size or this size. And of course, I realized afterwards that one is too big. This one here, this size, would be what 1 batch would do, at more or less about 3/4 of an inch thick, you know, when you put it in. This one here, I found that it's a little bit too small. So really what I do, I use this one, but then, so when I press it down, not too much, I kind of, go an extra 3/4 of an inch more. So really it's between the two of them. I believe it's about 5.5 inches long or wide, okay? Now for baking, I use insulated baking pan. Much easier, and not to get the biscotti burn. One thing, and you'll see it in the next step, when I do each batch ready to go on the baking sheet, of course, because you need something to lift it off the working surface. So I put on the working surface sheets of wax paper. Now, people think that perhaps parchment paper would be better, and yes, it would be. The only thing is, because I normally tape the sheet on the counter so that when you use the rolling pin, they'll move. Well, Scotch tape doesn't work on parchment paper. So unless you find a way to hold that parchment paper down, wax paper will have to do. So I put the wax paper, put some Scotch tape on each side, and then put each little batch of dough and work it out. And then using the frame and my eye, just do the right size, more or less, cut it up and put it on the baking sheet. But again, this one here is for next step. So first, we take this, the batch, and we put some flour on the working area so it doesn't stick. I will remove the mixer because we don't need it anymore. Okay, so here is we're going to get this one over. There. Scrape off the remaining of the mixer ball. Actually, it turned out quite well because there isn't much left stuck to it. I don't like to waste anything. Okay, so this one is done, and a little bit of flour, easy to handle it. And as you can see, it doesn't stick to the surface because of the flour, and you can just, make one big lump. Now, I like to actually be as precise as possible, and therefore what I do, I actually weigh this thing here and then divide it by the famous 6 batches. So we're gonna get a scale. And this one should be, it's about 3 kilos. So divided by 6, each batch will be 500 grams, more or less. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop at this time, and we'll get back to, and here we are again. So as I mentioned before, from that batch, I divided in 6 little loaves, and each one is gonna give us about 8 biscotti. They're all here, all 6 of them. As I mentioned before, I prepare some wax paper that it's taped to the working surface, and now I'm going to roll each of those batches to make a proper we're trying to do it as even as possible. Each of those little loaves, like I say, they are about 500 grams. So now, with using that form, as you can see, well, maybe you cannot, but anyway, so the form doesn't cover completely the thing. So then we just make joints of dough. So I just give it a little press to have a rough idea. And I was saying another 3/4 of an inch bigger on one side. So that gives me an idea of what should be. With a pizza wheel, I believe, I'm just going to try to make it as rectangular as possible. Now, there is leftover, which basically I'm going to join to the one here on the wax paper, because it's all supposed to be just for one batch. But I just wanted to give a right rectangular shape. And you just roll the pin. Don't push too hard, just let it roll there. And now again, okay, I just want to trim it so that it's all nice and okay. That one there was straightforward, and this one here, there. Okay, so this one is basically ready. We'll save the extra dough here because maybe we'll need it for the other one. So here we have one batch. Now what I do, I take off the Scotch tape, and because I'm doing 2 of those on each baking sheet, I want to make sure that there is not too much wax paper all around. So I trim it with a very sharp there. We just and we have the baking sheet, and you take this one here and you place it on it so that there is room for the other one. And basically I have 3 of those one, of course, so that's how I get 6 at a time. Okay, so I have done all those little loaf, 2, 4, and 6, 2 on each baking sheet. The oven, it's been preheated to 365. The original recipe called for 375. I found that it turned to burn the biscotti a little bit. So I find that the 365 it's actually works best for me. Here there are 3 racks ready to put on. So as soon as we get to 365, we'll put each of those baking sheet in for about 35 minutes. Keeping an eye on it towards the end to see if they are done right. And so we'll see you in about 35 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, here we are again. I took out one baking sheet out. Actually, the baking time was close to 40 minutes. Like I said, that's why you want to keep an eye on it. The reason you need it at a certain consistency because you have, of course, be able to remove the wax paper. So you just flip it, remove the wax paper very carefully, and flip it onto this one. It's a silicone sheet. Then, with a serrated knife, and as you can see, some area they are still a little bit burnt. So again, what I normally do, I discard the end anyway. So serrated knife again, and I take this one here out altogether, and then about close to an inch. One, two. I don't really like the ends. So, anyway, so then you take those one here and you put it back on the baking sheet and back in the oven for about 10 minutes at temperature of 310. So I'm going to just do this one here and then stop the movie while I'm doing all the other 5 loaf. And then we'll see again when they're all done. Okay, so now they're all done. As you can see, I cut them up, all of them. And here the other one. And more here. You can see there's some, it's a little bit burned, but oh well, it'll be covered with chocolate anyway. Okay, so temperature at 310, and once it's ready, we're gonna put it back in for about 10 minutes. This one because the inside of the biscotti is still a little bit soft. So the second baking, the biscotti, will take care of that. So about 10 minutes, and then you take them out and you put it on a rack, cooling rack. You can stack them up, 3 or 4 high or whatever. And normally I let it cool down for the day, and the day after I do the chocolate coating. That is another job. So for the baking, basically this is it. 10 minutes again, and then they'll be done. Hello again. So out of those 6 loaves that we made yesterday, those are all the biscotti that came. Exactly 53 pieces. I say that it's between 8 to 9 per batch, so that is about it. So now we're going to start. I mean, the biscotti, they are ready. They can be eaten and just as they are, of course, but I normally cover them in chocolate. So we'll start the next step, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Very important to scrape the biscotti as to lose up all the crumbs and stuff. Otherwise, they're just gonna end up in the chocolate mix, and eventually it's gonna make a mess because it's gonna be full of crumbs. So you just wanna take, the biscotti and gently just rub the side, the top, so that they are, as clear of loose debris as possible. Now, in the meantime, I put the chocolate in a double boiler, and from there I will transfer it into here tumbler that because it's nice and narrow and tall, it fits the biscotti better and allow a good coating at once. So here we go. I'm just gonna put you guys on hold until I make sure that the chocolate is ready. And actually, before I do that, chocolate. You can use whatever chocolate you like, of course, but I use Colorado. You can find it at Costco at the business center in the West End. It's 2.5 kilos for about $25. It comes in little wafers, and now they got 3 different types: white, milk chocolate, actually 4 kinds. A dark one, mine, the one that I use, it's 54%. You can get darker than that, but you have to be careful because the main thing to look at is the fluidity level. So you want at least a level 3, because if less than that, which you'll find that the darker one is, it is not going to be fluid enough to properly coat the biscotti. I mean, they will, but you basically are building with chocolate instead of coating. So again, or you can use, of course, chocolate from grocery store or whatever, baking chocolate. But I found that one there to be extremely expensive, when Colorado, it's much better, of course. And when you get down to it, it's much cheaper. So, okay, and we're back. So here I have the chocolate taken from the double boiler. It's nice and fluid. And we're going to dip the biscotti one at a time. You see that I have a cooling rack here. After they're done in the chocolate, I place them in here. And when this one is full, basically 12 to 15, I put this one here in the freezer so that the chocolate solidifies as fast as, as quickly as possible. And I have 2 of those cooling racks. So once it's cooling down or freezing over, whatever, then I can do another one, and then when those ones are done, I take them out, take it off the rack, put it in a container, and put it back in the fridge. They don't have to be frozen or refrigerated, of course, but I prefer to do that, if nothing else, for storage. When you make 48 or 50, and actually many times I make twice as many, I need the space. Clearly the fridge won't do it. So I pack them in a pack of 4 or 6 or whatever, and I put them in the freezer, and they are ready anytime. Okay, so here we go. Let's start the coating. Okay, so you dip, and then with a little spatula, you coat just about everything, of course, except that 1 inch on top where you hold in the biscotti, because because otherwise you would make a mess with your finger. And you want to scrape off as much of the extra chocolate. A, it's expensive, and B, it looks much better if it's not too lumpy. And here is the finished product, well, semi-finished. You put it on a cooling rack and to the next one again. One thing I can guarantee you, you will not find two biscotti that are exactly the same, but that is typical of a homemade product. This is not commercially made. So, and here we have number 2. And basically, that's all there is to it. So like I said, you finish coating a whole bunch of them or whatever, put them in the freezer so the chocolate solidify right away, and keep on doing it. And other than that, my job is done. I hope you enjoyed my little movie. My wife said it was way too long, but oh well, this was my first time. So please forgive me for the extra time. And I hope you enjoyed the movie, but more important, I hope you enjoy your final product. Take care.